Don't skip. Your soulmate secretly tested your loyalty, and the result made them cry. Don't skip. Listen carefully. The evening arrived with a quiet calm that made everything feel unusually still. Golden sunlight slowly disappeared behind distant hills, painting the sky with soft shades of orange, rose, and violet before giving way to the deep blue of approaching night. A gentle breeze drifted through open windows, carrying the fragrance of blooming jasmine and the fresh scent of rain that had fallen earlier that afternoon. Birds returned to their nests. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Families gathered around dinner tables. Children laughed while finishing their games before heading home. Everything appeared perfectly ordinary. Yet inside one quiet heart, something felt uncertain. Not because anything dramatic had happened, but because unanswered questions had quietly taken root. Because your heart needs this right now, because uncertainty often grows in silence when honest conversations are delayed. For many weeks, perhaps even months, someone had been quietly wondering, can trust truly survive difficult seasons? Do people remain loyal when life becomes complicated? Can kindness stay consistent when no one is watching? These questions weren't born from anger. They weren't created by hatred. They came from old disappointments, past experiences, moments when trust had once been broken. Although time had healed many wounds, tiny pieces of fear still remained hidden deep inside. Because your heart needs this right now, because past experiences sometimes influence present emotions in ways we barely notice. Every day they reminded themselves not to overthink. Yet doubts occasionally whispered during quiet evenings. Instead of asking direct questions, instead of sharing those fears openly, they kept everything inside. They convinced themselves they simply needed reassurance. Not confrontation. Not conflict. Just reassurance. Unfortunately, fear rarely chooses the healthiest path. Because your heart needs this right now, because fear often creates distance where honesty could create understanding. One peaceful evening they sat beside the living room window watching the sunset. A warm cup of tea rested on the small wooden table beside them. Soft instrumental music quietly filled the room. Across the street, an elderly couple watered flowers together before sitting side by side on their porch. Very few words passed between them. Yet every smile reflected years of quiet trust. Watching them stirred something deep inside. Healthy relationships aren't built through dramatic moments. They are built through countless ordinary acts of kindness. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows through consistency rather than grand gestures. Nearby rested a familiar leather notebook. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams written during hopeful seasons. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered during uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after ordinary blessings. Turning those pages reminded them how much life had already taught them. There had been joyful chapters, painful chapters, moments of confidence, moments of fear. Every experience had quietly shaped the person they were becoming. Opening to a blank page, they slowly wrote, Sometimes fear asks questions that love never would. They paused. Then continued. I want to believe the best about people. But sometimes old memories make that difficult. Reading those words filled the room with quiet reflection. Because your heart needs this right now, because acknowledging our fears is often the first step toward healing them. The following morning arrived wrapped in golden sunlight. Birds greeted another beautiful day with cheerful songs. The neighborhood bakery filled nearby streets with the comforting aroma of fresh bread. Children laughed while walking toward school. Neighbors greeted one another while watering colorful gardens. Everything looked wonderfully ordinary. Yet inside one heart, questions still lingered. Not because reality had changed, but because uncertainty still remained. Because your heart needs this right now, because unanswered fears rarely disappear without honest communication. Later that morning they visited the familiar neighborhood park. Towering oak trees stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Gentle breezes danced through their branches. The peaceful lake reflected drifting white clouds like polished glass. Families spread picnic blankets beneath shady trees. Children chased butterflies through blooming flower beds. Everything invited stillness. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the water, they quietly sat. Instead of enjoying the peaceful morning, their thoughts returned to the same questions. Can trust really last? Because your heart needs this right now, because our minds sometimes replay worries until we choose a healthier perspective. Nearby, an elderly grandfather patiently helped his grandson build a small wooden sailboat. Halfway through the project, the little boy frowned. How do I know it will float? The grandfather smiled kindly. We'll only know after we place it in the water. The boy thought for a moment. So I shouldn't decide before trying? The grandfather nodded. Exactly. Those simple words settled deeply into their heart. Many fears are judged before evidence ever appears. Because your heart needs this right now, because assumptions often create problems reality never intended. The afternoon slowly unfolded. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly woman reading beneath a flowering tree. After exchanging warm greetings, she gently closed her book. I've learned something after many years, she said. What is it? They asked. She smiled softly. People don't usually need hidden tests. They need safe conversations. Those simple words lingered long after they continued walking. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows where honesty feels safe. Later they wandered into the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers stretched beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully removed tiny weeds growing between healthy flowers. Curious, they asked. Why remove them while they're still so small? The gardener smiled warmly. Because little doubts become larger if they're ignored. He gently watered the flowers before continuing. The same thing happens in relationships. Questions deserve conversations. Not quiet assumptions. Those words quietly echoed inside. Because your heart needs this right now, because honest communication prevents misunderstandings from taking root. The afternoon breeze carried soft violin music through the park. Only a handful of visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the quiet afternoon with remarkable beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that many of life's greatest strengths rarely demand attention. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Respect grows quietly. Trust grows quietly. Yet together, they quietly strengthen every meaningful relationship. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting trust is built through everyday choices. Returning once more to the familiar wooden bench overlooking the lake, they opened the notebook again. Today's page slowly filled. Today I discovered something important. Fear often asks for proof. Love asks for honesty. Suspicion searches for hidden answers. Trust grows through open conversations. The strongest relationships are never built by testing one another. They are built by understanding one another. Reading those words filled their eyes with quiet tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of recognition. They realized that the greatest challenge wasn't learning whether someone else could be trusted. It was learning whether fear would continue controlling their own heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because healing begins when we confront fear with honesty instead of assumptions. As evening slowly returned, golden sunlight reflected across the calm lake. Families packed picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing quietly beside the water, they reflected on the title of this story. Don't skip. Your soulmate secretly tested your loyalty. And the result made them cry. A gentle smile crossed their face. The story was never meant to claim that a real soulmate secretly tested you or that such events are happening in your life. Instead, it symbolized a common human struggle, the temptation to seek certainty through hidden tests instead of honest conversations. The real lesson wasn't about proving loyalty. It was about learning to replace fear with trust and assumptions with understanding. Because your heart needs this right now, because healthy relationships flourish when honesty becomes stronger than doubt. That evening they returned home beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The notebook rested quietly on the table. Opening it one final time before bed, they carefully wrote, "Tomorrow I will choose conversations instead of assumptions. Tomorrow I will listen before judging. Tomorrow I will protect meaningful relationships through honesty and kindness. Tomorrow I will continue becoming someone whose heart reflects patience, humility, gratitude, compassion, and hope." They gently closed the notebook. Outside, the stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to build trust would appear. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer believed hidden tests could reveal the truth. Because they had discovered that genuine loyalty is revealed not through secret challenges, but through consistent kindness, honest communication, and the courage to trust. And listen to this. The next morning arrived with an unusual sense of calm. Golden sunlight slipped gently through the curtains, warming every corner of the room with soft shades of gold. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window carrying the fragrance of blooming flowers and the fresh scent of rain from the night before. Outside, birds welcomed the sunrise with cheerful songs. The neighborhood slowly awakened. The familiar bakery opened before dawn, filling the streets with the comforting aroma of warm bread. Children hurried toward school with bright smiles. Neighbors greeted one another while watering colorful gardens. Everything looked exactly the same. Yet inside one heart, something had quietly begun to change. The questions that once demanded immediate answers no longer felt as heavy. Instead, another thought slowly appeared. Maybe the answer isn't another test. Maybe the answer is one honest conversation. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows stronger when people choose openness instead of assumptions. That morning began without rushing. A warm cup of tea rested beside the kitchen window. Soft instrumental music filled the quiet room. Instead of replaying fearful thoughts, they simply watched the sunlight dance across the wooden floor. Across the street, an elderly couple worked together in their small garden. One carefully loosened the soil. The other gently watered each flower. Neither hurried. Neither criticized. They simply worked side by side. Watching them stirred something inside. Strong relationships aren't built by constantly questioning one another. They're built by growing together day after day. Because your heart needs this right now, because consistency creates trust more deeply than constant reassurance. After breakfast they reached once again for the familiar leather notebook resting quietly on the bookshelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams written during hopeful seasons. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered during uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after unexpected blessings. Turning those pages reminded them how many fears had eventually disappeared with time. So many worries that once felt enormous had quietly become lessons. Opening to a fresh page, they slowly wrote, "Today I choose courage over curiosity." After a thoughtful pause they continued, "Instead of searching for hidden answers, I will create honest conversations." Reading those words brought unexpected peace. Because your heart needs this right now, because courage often begins with choosing transparency. Later that morning they returned to the familiar park. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Its branches swayed gently beneath the summer breeze. The peaceful lake reflected drifting white clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while feeding ducks along the shoreline. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing ordinary conversations. Everything invited stillness. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the water, they quietly sat. This time they weren't searching for proof. They were searching for wisdom. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom often asks different questions than fear. Nearby, an elderly grandfather patiently helped his granddaughter build a small birdhouse. Halfway through, she accidentally placed one wooden panel backwards. She looked disappointed. "I ruined it." The grandfather smiled warmly. "No. We simply need to fix it together. Without criticism. Without frustration." They gently corrected the mistake. Watching them stirred another realization. Healthy relationships don't expect perfection. They expect willingness. Willingness to listen. Willingness to learn. Willingness to repair. Because your heart needs this right now, because mistakes become opportunities when compassion leads the response. The morning slowly became afternoon. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly woman reading beneath a flowering tree. After exchanging greetings, she gently closed her book. "I've learned something after many years," she said. "What is it?" they asked. She smiled softly. "When people feel unsure, they usually need reassurance. Not secret tests." Those simple words lingered long after the conversation ended. Because your heart needs this right now, because reassurance offered honestly is stronger than certainty sought secretly. Later they wandered into the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers bloomed beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered every flower before removing a few tiny weeds. Curious, they asked, "How do you keep the garden healthy?" The gardener smiled kindly. "I don't ignore small problems. I care for them early." He paused before adding, "Relationships are exactly the same. If questions appear, talk. If worries appear, listen. If misunderstandings appear, clear them gently before they grow." Those words quietly settled into their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because communication prevents fear from becoming distance. The afternoon breeze carried soft piano music across the park. Only a handful of visitors stopped to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with quiet beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that life's greatest qualities rarely seek applause. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Honesty grows quietly. Trust grows quietly. Yet together, they quietly transform relationships. Because your heart needs this right now, because quiet character speaks louder than dramatic promises. Later that afternoon, an opportunity finally arrived. Instead of holding every question inside, they chose a calm conversation. No accusations. No dramatic confrontation. Only honesty. "I've been carrying some worries," they admitted gently. "I don't want fear to become stronger than trust." The other person listened quietly. Without interruption. Without defensiveness. After a thoughtful pause, they smiled warmly. "I wish you had told me sooner." Those simple words carried more comfort than weeks of silent wondering. Because your heart needs this right now, because understanding often begins with vulnerability. The conversation unfolded naturally. Old misunderstandings were gently untangled. Small assumptions quietly disappeared. Moments that once seemed suspicious suddenly made perfect sense. Both realized how easily fear had filled the empty spaces where communication had been missing. One person quietly admitted, "I was looking for reassurance." The other nodded, "I was hoping you'd simply ask." The room became peaceful. Not because every future challenge had disappeared, but because both hearts finally understood each other. Because your heart needs this right now, because honesty creates the safety that fear never can. As evening slowly approached, they returned once more to the familiar park. The golden sunset reflected across the calm lake. Families packed picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing beside the water, they reflected on the title of this story. Don't skip. Your soulmate secretly tested your loyalty, and the result made them cry. A gentle smile crossed their face. They realized the test had never truly been about loyalty. It had been about insecurity. About old fears. About uncertainty searching for reassurance in unhealthy ways. The real turning point came when those fears were replaced by honest communication. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows strongest when people feel safe enough to tell the truth. That evening they returned home beneath a sky filled with countless stars. The notebook rested quietly on the table. Opening it one final time before bed, they carefully wrote, "Today I learned something beautiful. Questions deserve conversations. Fear deserves compassion. Trust deserves honesty. Relationships deserve patience. Love deserves openness." Then they added one final reflection. "Today I realized that secret tests can never reveal the strength of a relationship as clearly as one sincere conversation. Loyalty isn't proven by hidden challenges. It's revealed through everyday choices to communicate honestly, keep promises, show kindness consistently, and remain present during both joyful and difficult seasons. Those quiet choices become the true foundation of lasting trust." They gently closed the notebook. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to strengthen trust would appear. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer searched for hidden proof. Because they had discovered that genuine loyalty is never uncovered by secret tests. It is quietly revealed through honesty, patience, compassion, and the courage to trust one another every single day. And listen to this. Several peaceful days had passed since that honest conversation. The world outside continued exactly as it always had. The sun still rose slowly above the horizon, painting the sky with warm shades of gold and soft orange. Birds welcomed each new morning with cheerful songs. The neighborhood bakery filled the streets with the comforting aroma of freshly baked bread before sunrise. Children hurried toward school with bright smiles. Neighbors greeted one another while watering flowers and sweeping their front porches. Everything looked wonderfully ordinary. Yet inside one heart, everything had quietly changed. Not because every question had disappeared. Not because life had suddenly become perfect. But because silence had finally been replaced with understanding. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust begins growing the moment honest conversations replace hidden fears. That morning began without rushing. A warm cup of tea rested beside the kitchen window. Soft piano music played quietly from another room. Instead of worrying about what might happen tomorrow, they simply watched sunlight dance across the wooden floor. For the first time in many months, their heart felt lighter. The heavy weight of uncertainty had quietly disappeared. Not because someone had promised perfection, but because both people had chosen honesty. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine peace is built through truth rather than certainty. After breakfast, they reached once more for the familiar leather notebook resting quietly upon the bookshelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams written during hopeful seasons. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered through uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after unexpected blessings. Turning those pages reminded them how many fears had once seemed overwhelming. Some worries had never become reality. Some doubts had disappeared after one simple conversation. Others had quietly transformed into valuable lessons. Opening to a fresh page, they slowly wrote, "Today I understand something important." After a thoughtful pause, they continued, "Trust cannot grow where fear hides every question. It grows where people feel safe enough to tell the truth." Reading those words filled the room with quiet peace. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotional safety is one of the greatest gifts we can offer another person. Later that morning, they returned to the familiar park. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the bright blue sky. Gentle breezes danced through its branches. The peaceful lake reflected drifting clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while chasing butterflies across colorful flower beds. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing stories and simple meals. Everything invited stillness. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the lake, they quietly sat. Instead of asking, "Can I trust?" they now found themselves asking, "How can I become someone worthy of trust?" Because your heart needs this right now, because healthy relationships begin by improving ourselves rather than constantly testing others. Nearby, an elderly grandfather patiently taught his grandson how to repair an old bicycle. The boy accidentally tightened one bolt too much. "I ruined it," he sighed. The grandfather smiled warmly. "No. You simply learned something." Together they loosened the bolt and carefully adjusted it. Soon the bicycle worked perfectly again. Watching them stirred another quiet realization. Relationships are very similar. Small mistakes don't have to become permanent damage. When people work together with patience, many things can be repaired. Because your heart needs this right now, because forgiveness and teamwork often restore what fear believes is broken. The morning slowly became afternoon. Walking beside the peaceful lake, they noticed an elderly artist quietly painting the reflection of trees upon the calm water. "It looks beautiful," they said. The artist smiled. "It wasn't beautiful at first." "What changed?" "I stopped trying to paint every detail perfectly. I focused on capturing the feeling instead." Those words lingered. Relationships aren't about creating perfection. They're about creating safety. A place where both people can be honest. A place where mistakes become opportunities to learn instead of reasons to leave. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust flourishes where grace is stronger than perfection. Later they wandered through the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers stretched beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully tied a young vine to a wooden support. Curious, they asked. Why help it when it's already growing? The gardener smiled kindly. Because growing things still need support. So do people. So do friendships. So do families. So do relationships. Those words quietly settled into their heart. No one grows well completely alone. Everyone needs encouragement. Everyone needs understanding. Everyone needs someone willing to listen. Because your heart needs this right now, because encouragement helps trust continue growing. The afternoon breeze carried soft violin music across the park. Only a few visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with remarkable beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that the greatest qualities rarely seek applause. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Honesty grows quietly. Loyalty grows quietly. Yet together, they quietly create relationships capable of lasting through difficult seasons. Because your heart needs this right now, because consistent character speaks louder than dramatic promises. Later that afternoon another meaningful conversation unfolded. This time there were no fears hiding beneath the words. Only openness. One person quietly admitted, "I realize now I was searching for certainty in the wrong way." The other smiled gently. "And I realize I should have asked how you were feeling sooner." Both laughed softly. Neither tried to blame the other. Instead, both accepted responsibility for their own part. That simple moment changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now, because healthy relationships grow strongest when both people are willing to learn. As the afternoon slowly became evening, golden sunlight shimmered across the peaceful lake. Families folded picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing quietly beside the water, they reflected once more on the title of this story. Don't skip. Your soulmate secretly tested your loyalty, and the result made them cry. A gentle smile crossed their face. The tears in this story were never meant to symbolize dramatic heartbreak. They represented something much quieter. The realization that fear had almost created unnecessary distance. The realization that trust deserves conversations rather than hidden tests. The realization that honesty often brings relief. Because your heart needs this right now, because understanding replaces unnecessary fear with lasting peace. Returning home beneath a sky filled with countless stars, they opened the notebook one final time before bed. Today's final page slowly filled. Today I choose openness over suspicion. I choose conversations over assumptions. I choose listening before reacting. I choose patience while trust continues growing. I choose kindness even during uncertainty. Then they paused before writing one final reflection. Today I learned that loyalty cannot truly be measured through secret tests or hidden challenges. It is revealed in everyday moments, in keeping promises, speaking honestly, showing compassion, admitting mistakes, offering forgiveness, and choosing respect again and again. Those quiet decisions become the strongest foundation any meaningful relationship can have. Reading those words brought peaceful tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude. Because they realized something beautiful. The greatest victory wasn't proving someone's loyalty. It was learning how to build trust without fear. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to strengthen trust would appear. New lessons would quietly unfold. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer searched for hidden proof. Because they had discovered that the strongest relationships are never built by testing one another. They are built by choosing honesty, patience, compassion, forgiveness, and trust every single day. And listen to this. The final morning arrived wrapped in a peaceful silence unlike any that had come before. Golden sunlight slowly poured through the curtains, warming every corner of the room with soft shades of amber and gold. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the sweet fragrance of blooming jasmine and the fresh scent of rain from the previous evening. Outside, birds welcomed the sunrise with cheerful songs. The familiar bakery opened before dawn, filling the neighborhood with the comforting aroma of warm bread. Children laughed as they walked toward school. Neighbors smiled while watering flowers and greeting one another. Everything looked wonderfully ordinary. Yet inside one heart, everything had quietly changed. Not because every uncertainty had disappeared. Not because life had suddenly become perfect. But because fear no longer held the loudest voice. Trust had quietly taken its place. Because your heart needs this right now, because lasting peace begins when trust becomes stronger than fear. That morning there was no rush. No anxious search for hidden signs. No desire to prove anyone's loyalty. Only quiet gratitude. A warm cup of tea rested beside the kitchen window. Sunlight stretched across the wooden floor. Outside, two small birds carefully gathered tiny twigs to strengthen their nest. They returned again and again. One small twig at a time. Watching them brought a gentle smile. Strong nests aren't built all at once. Strong relationships aren't either. Every honest conversation adds another branch. Every act of kindness adds another layer. Every promise kept makes the foundation stronger. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust grows through many small moments rather than one dramatic event. After breakfast, they reached once again for the familiar leather notebook resting quietly on the bookshelf. Its worn cover reflected years of faithful use. Inside were dreams written during hopeful seasons. Questions recorded during lonely nights. Prayers whispered during uncertain moments. Pages filled with gratitude after unexpected blessings. Turning those pages felt like walking beside every earlier version of themselves. The version who feared disappointment. The version who quietly searched for reassurance. The version who believed hidden tests would reveal the truth. And finally, the version who understood something far more important. Trust cannot be forced. It must be freely built. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotional maturity begins when we replace control with confidence. Only one blank page remained. The final page. They rested the pen gently against the paper. For several peaceful moments, they simply listened. The birds. The breeze. The quiet rhythm of another ordinary morning. Then they slowly began writing. Today I finally understand. They paused before continuing. Trust is not something another person proves to me every day. It is something we build together. Another sentence appeared. Hidden tests create fear. Honest conversations create safety. Patience creates confidence. Kindness creates connection. Reading those words filled their eyes with peaceful tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because the greatest lessons often arrive after we let go of unnecessary fear. Later that morning they returned one final time to the familiar park. The towering oak tree stretched confidently toward the brilliant blue sky. Its branches swayed gently beneath the summer breeze. The peaceful lake reflected drifting clouds like polished glass. Children laughed while feeding ducks. Families gathered beneath shady trees sharing stories and simple meals. Everything invited stillness. Finding the familiar wooden bench overlooking the lake, they quietly sat. This time they weren't searching for reassurance. They already carried it within themselves. Because your heart needs this right now, because confidence grows when trust is supported by honesty rather than uncertainty. Nearby, an elderly carpenter carefully restored an old wooden chair. A curious child watched him patiently sand the worn wood. "Why don't you throw it away?" the child asked. The carpenter smiled warmly. Because something doesn't lose its value simply because it has a few scratches. He continued working before adding. With patience and care, many things become even stronger. Those words settled deeply into their heart. Relationships experience misunderstandings. People make mistakes. Fear occasionally appears. Yet with patience, respect, compassion, and forgiveness, many relationships become stronger than they were before. Because your heart needs this right now, because healing often strengthens what once felt fragile. The afternoon slowly unfolded. Golden sunlight shimmered across the peaceful lake. Nearby, a father patiently taught his daughter how to fly a colorful kite. The first attempt failed. The second attempt failed. The third attempt finally lifted high into the blue sky. The little girl laughed with excitement. Her father smiled proudly. Watching them reminded the person that trust often grows through repeated effort. Not every attempt succeeds immediately. But every patient effort teaches something valuable. Because your heart needs this right now, because perseverance helps relationships rise above temporary setbacks. Later they wandered through the community flower garden. Rows of roses, lilies, lavender, daisies, and sunflowers bloomed beneath the warm afternoon sunshine. An elderly gardener carefully watered each flower before gently removing a few faded leaves. Curious, they asked, "Do flowers ever bloom without care?" The gardener smiled kindly. They bloom because someone keeps caring for them. He looked across the colorful garden before quietly adding, "So do relationships." Those simple words lingered. Trust requires attention. Respect requires consistency. Love requires daily choices. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful relationships flourish when they are intentionally cared for. The afternoon breeze carried soft violin music across the park. Only a few visitors paused to listen. Still, every melody filled the air with remarkable beauty. Watching the musician reminded them that many of life's greatest strengths never ask for recognition. Integrity grows quietly. Patience grows quietly. Compassion grows quietly. Forgiveness grows quietly. Trust grows quietly. Yet together, they quietly shape extraordinary relationships. Because your heart needs this right now, because quiet faithfulness often leaves the deepest impact. Later that evening, another heartfelt conversation unfolded. This time there was no fear hiding beneath the words. Only openness. One person quietly admitted, "I regret trying to find reassurance in unhealthy ways." The other smiled gently. "And I'm grateful we chose honesty instead." A peaceful silence followed. Not an uncomfortable silence. A comfortable one. The kind of silence shared between people who no longer feel the need to prove themselves. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine trust creates emotional safety. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, the lake reflected brilliant shades of orange, pink, and violet. Families gathered their picnic blankets. Children waved goodbye to new friends. Birds returned to their nests. Everything gradually became still. Standing quietly beside the water, they reflected one final time on the title of this story. Don't skip. Your soulmate secretly tested your loyalty, and the result made them cry. A gentle smile crossed their face. The story had never been about predicting that a real soulmate secretly tested anyone. It had never claimed that such events were happening in real life. Instead, it explored a common human experience. Sometimes fear tempts people to seek certainty through hidden tests. But genuine relationships grow stronger through honesty, empathy, patience, and respectful communication, not secret challenges. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust thrives where openness replaces suspicion. Returning home beneath a sky filled with countless stars, they opened the notebook one final time. The last page slowly filled. If this journey has taught me anything, it is this. Never let fear speak louder than honesty. Never replace conversations with assumptions. Never expect hidden tests to build lasting trust. Protect meaningful relationships through kindness, patience, and understanding. Choose forgiveness when healing is possible. Choose gratitude every day. Then they paused before writing one final reflection. Tomorrow remains unwritten, but I no longer fear it. Whether life brings joyful celebrations, unexpected questions, difficult conversations, or peaceful ordinary mornings, I choose to meet each day with honesty, humility, compassion, patience, forgiveness, gratitude, and hope. Those values cannot guarantee a perfect life, but they create the strongest possible foundation for healthy, meaningful, and lasting relationships. They gently closed the notebook. Outside, countless stars shimmered across the peaceful night sky. The journey had reached its final page. Tomorrow remained unwritten. New conversations would begin. New opportunities to strengthen trust would appear. New lessons would quietly unfold. And for the first time in many seasons, they no longer searched for hidden proof of loyalty. Because they had discovered the greatest truth of all. Real loyalty is never measured by secret tests. It is revealed through everyday acts of honesty. Through promises kept. Through patient listening. Through forgiveness freely offered. Through kindness consistently shown. And through the courage to choose trust, even when fear quietly asks us not to. The room became still. The stars filled the night sky. With a peaceful smile, they turned off the light, ready to welcome tomorrow, not with suspicion, but with wisdom, compassion, honesty, hope, and love.